Hello and welcome to today's 4Ps podcast. You know, we had a fantastic year and this will be the last time you hear my voice this year. We will come back with the best of interview with Philip McDonald right after this.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinit. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinit.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinit.
You know, I want to thank you for your continued support on the 4Ps podcast. This podcast is growing every single day. And just recently, I found out that there is an autonomous region in the English Channel named Jersey. And the reason why I found out that there's this region is because there are people listening to the podcast in that area. And I want to thank you so much for your support. If you enjoy the 4Ps podcast and you enjoy stories similar to the ones you hear on the podcast, you will love the book, The 4Ps of You. The 4Ps of You is a collection of stories that deal with those 4Ps, and those Ps are purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. These are a great way to build that foundation and go forward in planning life and finding your meaning and finding your purpose. That is the 4Ps of You. It is available on Amazon. It is available at Barnes & Noble here in the United States. It is also available at Chapters and Indigo Bookstore in Canada. It is available in the UK. It is available all around the world. You can find it. And you know what? I'm going to make sure that it is in Jersey. That is the 4Ps of You. Please get it. Please read it. And thank you for your continued support.
Hello and welcome back to the 4Ps podcast. This year has been a fantastic year. I mean, we have been growing as a podcast. I have, as far as the audience is concerned, I have made a lot of friends here on this podcast, and we have done a lot of great things. But you know what? One person out of all of the people that I interviewed this year that actually made me feel like I was talking to a family member. This is somebody who lives literally all the way across the globe from me. And he is not only a friend, he's not only a guest of this program, but I will seriously call him my brother. His name is Philip James McDonald. He is from Australia. He is a boxer. He is an architect. He's a builder. He is all these things. But, one thing that he he's inspiring. He's a inspiring man. There's a lot of things. You're going to see him on this podcast again very soon. He is going to do something that is just outstanding. And he's going to be doing it in 2025. And I am going to help him through this. He's going to be doing a couple things. He has a book coming out next year. He's going to be doing a lot of things next year. But one thing, we're not going to talk about it in this episode, but we are going to talk about it very, very soon. But Phil is the type of individual who you would think that with all that he went through, that he would just be a bitter man. And he's not. He is actually a great person and somebody that if you meet him one time, you feel like you've known him your whole entire life. And I wish there were more people on this planet like Phil. I mean, he is just that type of person. Love talking to him. And, we talk to each other quite often. And if we go for a long time without talking, he will actually send me a message and say, hey, it's been a while since we've talked. We need to set up a meeting. And I will tell you right now, I will drop whatever I'm doing to make sure I meet with this guy. He is a fantastic individual. Like I said, he has become a brother of mine. He really has. I learned a lot from Phil in this interview and even after. And the thing is about Phil is his love of family. In spite of what he went through. And when you hear this, there was a two-part series, but you're going to actually hear the back end of the two-part series today. When you hear what he had to go through and you hear the lack of love that he had growing up from one of his parents, you're going to realize that this guy should be, all types of bad. and he's not. He's a fantastic individual. He is a loving person, and I've met many members of his family behind. Seriously, his family is like reaching out as well, and I love all of that. And I love his aunt, who I talk to quite often, and his daughter, who I met, and again, fantastic individuals, are doing some great things over there in Australia, and I cannot wait to see them in March. But when we come back, we are going to be talking to Phil right after this.
Want a financial detective who translates your money into clear insights and understands your vision? Meet Rose Knows Bookkeeping. Free up your time and get peace of mind with accurate, up-to-date finances. Let Rose handle the numbers while you focus on success. Contact Rose Knows Bookkeeping today.
Welcome back. This is the second, this is the first time, actually, I should say, that we have ever had a two-part series. And the reason for that is because Philip McDonald is such a phenomenal individual. I'm going to say this right now, and I know I said this in the first series, or the first part of this series. He has become a very dear friend. I do. I look up to him. I love talking to him, and it's great talking to him and having him on here. And in order for us, we have to be very structured, because we can end up talking about everything here, and because we will talk about anything. As a matter of fact, before we even started, we started going off, and so I want to make sure we don't bore the audience, which his story is not boring at all with anything. But Philip, welcome back to the program. How's it going in Australia today?
Mate, it's pretty good down here. It's not too cold this morning. It's middle of winter, 6:30 a.m. It's I think just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon or thereabouts where you are. But I'm well, and thanks for having me back, brother.
I'm glad you're back.
Good to be back.
Very glad you're back. So Philip, we were talking last week, and your father was an inspiration to you. The relationship you had with your mother kind of baffled me a little bit. And then we talked a little, and I was kind of lost, because a mother's love is special. And then you brought up something before we got on into the podcast. Matter of fact, a couple of days before we did this interview, and you said, you talked about how you came about, basically. And when I read it, I was stunned by what you revealed. Would love for you to share that, please.
Yeah, well, my parents met. It was a blind date. That's how they met. And not long after that, my mother fell pregnant, and I was result of a blind date. I wasn't planned. So I was an uncomfortable accident, and my mother's father had attempted to persuade my mother to abort me. And if it wasn't for my father, who was 23 at the time, she was 19, I wouldn't be here. And so the result of that was that my father ended up marrying my mother, so that abortion essentially wouldn't take place.
My goodness. You have siblings, correct?
I have a sister. I don't speak with her, Trinis, and I don't speak to my biological mother.
And your biological mother's still alive? Correct. Wow. So your father basically, and I'm going to say this because you really did take on, whatever the faults are of all parents. I have my faults. We all have our faults. But your role as a father today, Philip, is main, and you protect your family. You talk very highly of your family. You love your family. It definitely comes from your father, doesn't it?
Look, 100%. You know, Dad extended himself for other people, and essentially, you know, I believe that's what love is. Love is extending yourself to a capacity that sometimes you don't even know you have yourself for the betterment of others. And Dad exampled that for his whole 82 years. And it started, you know, I found out, you know, I was the result of that character trait of his being able to be born. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him extending himself for, you know, an unknown child, you know, that his partner was carrying.
So your father, the bond that you and your father had was extremely special. The bond that you and your mother had, I know that you and your mother do not talk now, but when was that bond severely, and I don't want to ever say permanently, because, you know, she's still alive, but when was that bond like severely severed to the point to where it is today?
Look, you know, for use of a better explanation, it was fractured at the best of times, and it permanently, permanently, my God. Look, I was 22 when I first got married. It was probably heading south then to you know, a point of permanency. And, you know, look, I'm just guessing maybe 15, 16 years now. It's been permanent. My mother would run me down to people all the time. She would tell people that I'm no good. She would tell me I'm no good. She'd tell me that I would never amount to anything, basically. She would set me up to be living proof of what she would tell people I was like, because, you know, I wasn't hip to the sort of games that she would play, and you know, basically set a trap for me that I would react in front of other people, and that, so she was able to go, I told you, that's just what he's like, see? And so other people would see me at my very worst, because, you know, I would take the bait and behave the way she, in the light that she wanted people to see me in. And it's only when I grew older that I realised, you know, she didn't want me around. And it was the point where my mother's sisters pleaded with my mother to allow her to allow me to be raised by them. Such was their caution of or cautiousness of having to raise me, that they didn't have confidence, and she's the eldest of four sisters. They didn't have confidence in her raising me, and basically for my protection, and to, you know, get me away from harm, because Dad was just at work the whole time, and, you know, whatever was going on, whatever he knew was going on in their relationship, you know, after work he'd go to the pub, and then he'd come home, and, you know, he'd had a few beers, and you know, if she said that I'd done something, you know, I'd cop a hiding off Dad, and so she'd set me up again there, and he'd react to it, and she was a great manipulator, and, you know, I just don't want to be part of that. She very rarely has anything to do with my three children or our three grandchildren, and that says it all. But she has a close relationship with my sister that I have nothing to do with either.
Wow. So the other question I want to ask you, so you going back to the first interview, in the first interview you talked about how your mother had an affair with your dad's former best friend, and
he was his business partner as well.
And Did they stay together after it was revealed, or?
No, no. That lasted a very short time. My father found where they were. An incident developed, and this fella almost lost his eye in the fight between himself and my father. My mother came back into the relationship after that, and I think Dad was aware of not wanting to leave my mother for fear of what would happen to my sister and myself. So you think of the capacity of a man to stay in a relationship that was no good because he cared so much, about the welfare of his two children. And that says something about him. And so, it just once again exempling that, capacity to extend himself for others.
So did they stay together until your father passed away, or did they?
No, not at all. They, it would have been about 34 years before Dad passed away. Dad passed away at 82, just over 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Dad remarried. He met a wonderful lady called Pat, Patricia, that I call Mum. My stepmother, she's just an amazing lady, and I always remember Dad saying about Pat, she's still alive, and he said Pat is a real person, and she is. We love her to pieces, and she's a grandmother to the children that my biological mother is not. And I always remember my biological mother saying, "Look, I'm just not a maternal person." And I went, wow, really?
Oh, shit.
But she had a great relationship with my sister. How do you work that out? And she's not a maternal person. That's how she somehow justifies her behaviour.
It's not justifiable. Your father saved your life at birth, and your father saved your life now. Even at your age, your father definitely saved your life. And the thing is with Pat, your dad, through all of the misery that he went through, because I'm going to tell you, I mean, I've been through some times, you know what I mean? And some miserable times, but it's nice to have someone, especially towards the last half of your life, and that you deserve, that you love, and that you're happy. And look, that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, my word. And I've got less years ahead of me than I've got behind me. So it really does, stimulate how you think, how you perceive, how you approach things. And look, we're always growing. And, I'm a much different person that I was when I first got married at 22. At 22, you're still developing. I think still developing your personality, your character to who you're going to be for the rest of your life, up into your 30s. So, we changed. My former wife and myself, I probably changed more than what she did. She's a wonderful person and, a fantastic mother and grandmother, to, our three children and our grandchildren. But I was the fuck up, and I say that, quite unequivocally. It was me that, needed to change in order for things in my life change, Trinus.
Now, you were 22 when you got married the first time.
Yep.
And now you said that, and I was going to ask you a question. You admitted that you weren't the husband that you should have been or could have been, and you've evolved. And now there's obviously some type of admiration and friendship between you and your ex-wife. or some kind of congenial, some type of solid relationship, I should say, between the two of you. How much do you think, and now you're reflecting back, you're 22, this is 40 years later, you're looking back at your life, how much of your childhood, and again, I am the type of person where I don't blame, my parents for the decisions I make when I'm an adult, but on the same note, there is an influence to the decisions you make when you're an adult. And how much do you think that influenced you with your first marriage?
Oh, look, I think it's got everything to do with it. I struggled for so long, Trinus, with identity. I've always tried to emulate my father and his successes and all that type of thing, instead of just trying to find out who I am. Mm-hmm. And in later years, I did some searching, and I went and saw a therapist, and we did some work, and at the end of that, what was revealed, and this guy was a psychotherapist, he's become a mate of mine, and what was revealed is, yes, I am my father's son, and of course there's going to be inherent traits there, but I found out who I am as well. I'm a strong individual with very much my own mind. I can have a bugger off attitude to a lot of people in a lot of different situations, but I'm very much my own man. I believe that I can achieve anything I put my mind to. My confidence is through the roof these days. It's cockiness. I think cockiness, the difference between cockiness and confidence is cockiness, you think through bravado, oh yeah, I can do that. Confidence is the fact that you can do something. And I struggled for so long wallowing, in my own cloud. My head was in a cloud. And my former wife, this is a great opportunity for me to apologise to her publicly by doing this podcast with you, and to everyone else that watches this podcast that I've ever affected emotionally or physically. It's my opportunity to apologise to them if I've ever made them feel uneasy, or I've been a stumbling block in their own life, or caused misfortune or whatever to them, so I apologise for the way I was then, and I couldn't navigate myself, let alone navigate my relationship with anyone else.
Right. I that is the first time this ever happened on the podcast. It is humbling. You're a humble man, and you are, like I said, that is. It's amazing, and again, like I said, that is the act of humility for you to do such a public act in that way. Again, the person you were at 22 is not the person you are now, and that is for sure. You are now married again, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. And obviously you've taken the lessons from your previous marriage, and lessons learned, you've applied them to your marriage today. Obviously it's strong. You guys talk highly of her. How does she fit in, or how does she accept and tolerate the dichotomy of your family?
Annika, we've been married just on 10 years, together about 15, 16 years, all up. She's an amazing person. She walked away from an abusive marriage. She was married when she was 16. And Annika's background, she's Macedonian. She came to Australia when she was 2. And, her parents didn't speak English when they arrived in Australia. Mm-hmm. And they're the epitome, of hardworking people. And Annika started selling fabric. She's in fashion, and she's been in fashion her whole life. She turns 60 next January. And she started selling fabric, as I said, in the fashion industry when she was 16 years of age. She's maintained her role in fashion since, and is still employed in the industry. And so, that is just a small example of Annika's character, which is one of consistency, and she applies that to every area of life. In her commitment to other people, the way she is with our grandchildren, with our kids, everything. My ex-wife, she is quite friendly. They're quite friendly toward each other when we see each other at family get-togethers and whatnot. Annika's staunch. There's just this solidness about her, and that was there from the first moment we met, and we talked all night till about 2:00 in the morning. We just talked and laughed, and I just myself, wow, this is someone of substance, and that has continued right through to today. And she, there's nothing false about Annika at all. It's just 100% genuine. It is what you get. And it's not a case of like, oh, where have you been all my life? It's a case of I met her because I was ready to meet someone like.
It's funny how sometimes that soulmate, so to speak, is out there. You just have to get prepared, because that person will not be your soulmate for long if you're not prepared.
He wouldn't have spent 2 seconds talking, to my former self.
I completely believe that. Now, life, even though you've gone through quite a bit, you had a great career as a builder. You had a career as a boxer. You've helped a lot of people. You continue to help people through the sport of boxing, young and old. And you hold a couple of world records, or a few world records. 3 of them. Tell us about the first world record that you have.
The first world record was it was called the Les Galvin Memorial, and I decided to achieve that and raise money for mental health and awareness for mental health after my best mate, that was best man at my first wedding, took his own life. And so Les had battled his demons, and they won. His demons won. And I got a missed call from my father. I was away on a bike trip, riding these 3 peaks in the southern states of Australia. Down here, there's 3 peaks that they snow on each year, and so they're pretty steep. So we rode those, and as we'd finished our tour, I've got not 1 but 15 missed calls from my father, and I thought, oh, he must be with the grandchildren. They must be pocket dialing me or something, because Dad would ring once, and if he can't get on to me, he'd leave it, and he'd know that I'd call him back when I got to my phone. I rang him, and he said to me, Les has passed away. I said, what? And then he told me a bit more, and I've just gone, wow. And I was numb for days. Anyway, so I'd already been training to to do what became my second world record. But COVID hit and we couldn't get the Guinness, world record judges out here. So because I've been training on the bag, like doing marathon training sessions on the bag, like 150 rounds, so that's 10 hours.
Yeah.
On the heavy bag, 10 hours. I said to my trainer, Ian Schaefer, who's my best mate, he's a former world champion himself. I said, well, why don't we do an event on the bag, and I can call it the Les Galvin Memorial. We can raise money and awareness for mental health. He said, that's a great idea. So what are you thinking, Phil? A few hours? I said, no. And he said, well, what, 150 rounds? Because that's what the second world record was, 150 rounds of boxing. I said, no, I'm thinking 24 hours. He said, what? What, 24 hours and have a minute break every 3 minutes? I said, no, 24 hours non-stop. He said, what, no toilet break? No, nothing. I said, nothing. I said, I want to go 24 hours non-stop. He said, he affectionately calls me filthy. And he said, filthy? He said, mate, you're crazy. And I said, well, that's one crazy person speaking to another. So so we, in January, the end of January 2021, we set out at it was 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning. And I remember Dad walked through into this factory that we did it near Mascot Airport at Sydney. And a mate of ours owned the factory. And Dad walked through the roller door, and Anik was there before she went off to work to come back later in that afternoon. And Dad said to me, he said, well, good luck, son. He said, I'll give Anik a ring tomorrow morning before Paddy and I come down to see how you're going. And I thought to myself, what? You're going to call Annika tomorrow morning just to make sure I'm still going so you don't waste a car trip down here? And I thought, you bugger. And that spurred me on. And then later I thought about it, and I thought, he knew how to get to me, right? I spited him, right? I spited him, right? And I thought, bugger you don't think I can keep going? I said, I'll show you, right? So he walked through the doors just as the sun was coming up the next morning, and I just had this memory I've got as all my family walked through the roller door of this factory with the sun shining behind them, and then I picked up the pace. And it was live streamed, and my cousin, Adam McDonald, he said, I'll donate another $1,000 if you can go flat out for 3 minutes in the last 3 minutes of 24 hours. So Annika was reading off the comments to the live stream, messages of support from people and, people pledging donations as I was going. So I had the bag on a 45-degree tilt, hitting it as hard as I could in the last 3 minutes of that 24 hours. The energy that I felt as I saw my family walk through those doors, I just can't put that into words, Trinus. Mm-hmm. And that proved to be the last time I ever saw Dad conscious. He suffered a stroke a week after that, and 8 weeks after that, he was no longer with us.
But you know what? He was cheering you on the whole time.
Yeah.
Wow. And he knew how to push your buttons, huh?
Oh man. And that says so much about his ability to know me intimately, to know my mind, and be able to lift me, gave me this. And his mother was the same. My grandmother, his mum, Ethel, little Ethel, She was this Irish redhead. And it's funny because all our 3 grandchildren, guess what? They're all redheads.
They're all redheads, huh?
So,
The funny thing is we were talking last time about how our fathers were very much the same. And you said your grandmother's name was Ethel. Ethel is a very unique name. And my great-grandmother's name is Ethel.
well, beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah, and she was short. She was not redhead, and she was definitely not Irish, but she was Native American, and she was black, but she was and it's funny, Ethel. That is unbelievable. Wow, that's another similarity. For the instance of time, I am going to share the other two world records that he has that you have after this episode's over. I also want to share. I know that you are you still give to many foundations. You still donate to many foundations. Those links will also be in the podcast notes. I want to make sure that people donate. I want people from around the world. We're going to try to break another record. We would like to flood Australia with some American money, some Canadian money, some Great Britain money. I have people in Russia listening. I have people in Algeria listening. All over the world, donate to this to the causes that we are going to have in the podcast notes. One last thing, Philip. You have, like I said, you are a dear friend of mine. And this is not the last time you will hear from Philip, either on this podcast or something else that is going to happen with Philip. We are talking about it. We're going to keep it a secret right now. But I would like for you, and I mean instantly, and I feel like, I want to say that I try to inspire people. I try to motivate people. But one thing that I must say is that you, Philip, motivate me. You motivate me a great deal. And you motivate me because of what you went through and then your reaction to it, because what you do. There's a lot of people in your community, in the country of Australia, that benefit from the things you do and the heart that you have. What would you say to someone who is just, and it doesn't have to be the type of life that you had, but they are going through a major struggle? What would you say to lift them up?
Well, firstly, you've got to get a good friend, like I have in Ian Schaefer. Secondly, don't look too far ahead. Just get through the next hour, and they run into several hours, and then you get through the next day. And I think the worst thing people can do is put too much pressure on themselves. So for me, when things have been pretty dark for me, just get through each day. And, as the old saying is, one step at a time. And that's all you can do. Just put one foot after the other and just keep walking, and just find something to be grateful for. I wake up every morning and put my arms around my wife and kiss her on the forehead. And I'm so grateful to see her every morning. It's grateful that I get to open my eyes. There's got to be something. Doesn't matter how bad things get for you. There's got to be something that you attach, some sort of feeling to, that something that means something to you. And for me, it's the sound of my mate's voice. When I hear him, it's like, I've got joy whenever you and I speak, or we just even message back each other without seeing each other, and hearing each other like we are now. We might just message each other. Attach yourself to things that bring you joy. I don't care if it's something as silly, sounds crazy, like just a bowl of ice cream. If that does it for you and that breaks, things up, dish yourself up a bowl of ice cream. Go for a walk, get some sun on your face, go have coffee with a friend. Look, at the end of the day, money means nothing. You can't put a value on, your own happiness, your own peace of mind, your own well-being, your mental health. And for me, just to be at peace is something that, I can't put a figure on that. It's just absolute gold. You can't buy that. You can't buy peace. And I've got peace.
Absolutely. Philip McDonald, great individual, a dear friend. He's a brother of mine. He really is. He is absolutely a part of what he says, part of the crew. He's definitely a part of my crew. I'm glad to be a part of his. We will be right back right after this. Hello. First, I want to say I am forever grateful for the support that my audience has given me for the 4Ps podcast. When the 4Ps podcast started out, it was only supposed to deal with the 4Ps, that is purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. But then after hearing the stories that I hear from my guests and also hearing the stories and the responses of the stories from my audience regarding how those stories helped, I was compelled to come out with the series Stories Of. Stories Of is going to be a series of books. Right now we have, for 2024, we have the stories of children lost and the stories of veterans. In 2025, we will have a stories of loss once more, but we'll also have the stories of addiction. And in the future, we'll have other stories to come about. These books give the voice to those who probably couldn't give their voice out any other way. And we will give them their stories, and they share their stories with you, and they help the reader find ways that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Stories of franchise. Like I said, the first two are out for 2024. It's Stories of Children Lost and the Stories of Veterans. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes & Noble. You can find it anywhere you buy books. It's the Stories of franchise. Please read it. It will help you. It will help your loved ones. It will help your family. Stories Of. Get them at a bookshop near you.
Hello, 4Ps family. And remember last year we had the Where on Earth is Trunis Goggins? And I was in Toronto, I was in Buffalo, I was in Cincinnati, I was all over the East Coast. And then Hurricane Helene happened. And I had to stop going on my tour for my book, The 4Ps of You. Well, we are now cleaned up. We're now back to where we're supposed to be. And now, where on earth is Trunis Goggins? Well, I'm going to tell you, on January 11th, that is a Saturday, I will go back to where it's all started. And I'll be there signing books to the 4Ps of You book. And I'll also be there signing books for Stories of Children Lost. I'll be signing books for both those on January 11th in Johnson City, Tennessee. I really hope to see you there. We will have this segment quite often now because guess what? Helene did not stop the show. It slowed it down, but it didn't stop it. See you there. Again, Johnson City, January 11th. That's Saturday. Welcome back to the program, our final program of 2024. And I'm going to say this, out of all of the podcasts, I don't know how many we did this last year. We did a lot. I know that there was a brief time that I was not feeling well, so I was not doing these podcasts because I was sick. And, I'm not popular enough yet where I can have a guest sit in, with me, and nor can I afford it. But I will say this, we had a lot of episodes in 2024. Out of all the episodes that I had in 2024, and every single episode is a great episode. Every single guest I had was a great guest. This was the most downloaded. It was downloaded in 49 different countries throughout the world. And I know that people were inspired by Phil. Phil is not an accident for sure. And what he did was he literally, the original title of this was Going the Distance, Never Finished. And he has gone the distance. He continues to go the distance. He loves breaking world records, and he's going to break another one. I know that. That's just how Phil is. And he is going to do great things in 2025. Speaking of 2025, like I said, this is the last time you're going to hear us in 2025. And when I say here, I mean the word here, because, for the time that I've had this podcast, we've always been audio only. We are going to be going video. We are studying a new platform. We were going to do this a lot earlier, but in 2024 here in Asheville, North Carolina, we had the hurricane, and it really did mess up my studio. It messed it up real bad. I do the studio. I do it from my home. I do it in the basement. And our basement was flooded. I mean, it was flooded. A lot of my material, a lot of my stuff got destroyed. As a matter of fact, just this last weekend, I was cleaning up some boxes. I thought everything was good to go, and I opened up a one of those plastic Tupperware type containers. Opened it up, and it was full of water. I mean, it was literally full of water from Hurricane Helene. I don't know how it seeped through. I do know that brand of container that I got, it wasn't Tupperware, but it was something else. But I know that brand is a brand that I will never get again for storage, anything. It was full of water. Everything that was in it was absolutely destroyed. I'm just glad that it protected the other one that was right under it, because the other one that was right under it, same company, by the way, had some very valuable things in it, very valuable indeed. And I'm glad that wasn't hurt and destroyed. Another thing I want to talk about 2024 is, we talk about this a lot, but I do want to bring this up. This has nothing to do with today's episode at all, but it does have to do with redemption. Just a couple of, it just happened on the 29th of December. We lost a former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter. And I will say Jimmy Carter, one thing that I have to say about Jimmy Carter was he was admired, not maybe for his presidency, but he was admired for the person he was. He stood on principle, and he had passion. He had a purpose. He had a purpose to change the world, and either it was changing the world through the White House. I think he did more outside the White House than he did in the White House. He literally housed people. He loved people. He taught Sunday school. Can you imagine former president of the United States at church? Small church. This wasn't a big church. I look at people nowadays with these huge churches with thousands of members. And you know what? Jimmy Carter, he didn't have that. He had a very small church. He was a very humble person. He was a great person. He was a man of principle and honor, and I don't care about his politics at all. I don't care about anybody's politics, to be honest with you. I always look at the person. People have political views because of their circumstances, their past circumstances, what they've gone through, and how they believe, and that's how their political views are made. I can tell you right now, I'm a 53-year-old man, but if I go back and talk to 23-year-old Trunis Goggins II, I can tell you 23-year-old Trunis Goggins II would probably make me mad with his political stances. As a matter of fact, I know he would, because they evolve over time. I hope that we are evolving over time with our philosophies and with our thought processes, because we learn and we get more experiences. A 23-year-old person does not have the same experiences as a 53-year-old person. And if they do, then that 53-year-old person did not live at all. So those are things that I think about. But I will say this about Jimmy Carter. I admire him as a man, and, this world was a better place because he was in it. So I do want to say that if there's anything that we can learn from Jimmy Carter's life, is to make sure that we have the passion and we have our mission and our purpose to do what we're supposed to do. Because if we do, I'm going to tell you, we're going to leave this earth, and a lot of people are going to benefit because you lived your purpose. And I'm going to tell you, if you live your purpose, you are absolutely going to serve other people. You really are, because it does help. Just like Phil. He's living his purpose. He's doing his thing. But I'm going to tell you, he's inspiring people. Like I said, he's inspiring throughout the world from what he does. And again, I am so proud to call him friend. And I'm even prouder that he calls me his brother. And I am his brother as well. We will be talking to you next year. We are going to be video and audio starting next year. So you can pull us up on YouTube. You can see my ugly face. But the best thing about it is all of my guests are good looking. So when you see them, at least you're going to see people that are good looking, and I kind of offset that. So you get a 50-50, 50-50. And so we will be talking to you next year. We will probably be back. I will say our first download will probably be the 11th of January is when we're going to come out. I can't wait. Cannot wait. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.